hereby call the 2,307th meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item is our Outstanding Milwaukee High School Student Achievement Awards for December. And Principal Gellman, would you please come up?
Yes. Saron,
And of course,
come on up. This is Saron Ketema. This is our student of the month for December, and you are in for a treat. This girl is so awesome.
Miss Gelman, can you pull the mic down?
Oh, you're in for a treat. If y'all didn't hear me back there, this girl's a rock star. She's awesome. We're so excited to bring her forward in front of you today. I met Saron, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
When I first came along, but she's been with us since the 10th grade, and she has just become such an important part of our school community and just what she does and her leadership. And I sent you guys a bunch of information, but she's #1 in her class at Milwaukee. She is amazing. She got accepted into Dartmouth, so we're very, very excited. And got the Quest Scholarship, so she gets a full ride, and she's also a semifinalist for the Gates Millennium Scholarship. But she does so much more than that. So what I want to do is I'd like to share with you.
that's not enough.
That's not enough. But so it's just really exciting. But I do want to share with Saron some things that teachers said about you, because I think it's important that you hear how much people love you. So Saron is one of those students that a teacher will remember long after she's graduated. Her attention to every detail and relentless drive in her education make her an academic standout. Her kind and helpful nature make her an absolute joy to be around. She values every opportunity presented, and I cannot think of any student more deserving of this recognition. That's from Miss Matthews.
Oh.
And then we'll talk a little bit about Dartmouth again. So Saron's hard work and dedication has paid off. She received the Quest Bridge Scholarship for a full ride at Dartmouth College. Dartmouth is a private Ivy League research university in New Hampshire that was established in 1769, the 9th oldest institution of higher education in the United States, and one of the 9 colonial colleges chartered before the American Revolution. By the way, Dartmouth has only an 11% acceptance rate, and the Quest Bridge rate is 13% across the country. And this is who is sitting in front of you. So that comes from Lisa Boyd in the College and Career Center. From Miss Marshall, she says that you are the only student who has volunteered to go on a habitat build twice. And this year she's also enfranchised 3 other students to come who might not have if it wasn't for her. She contributes to the community. Saron is one of a kind. She's extremely smart, but also gives back to her community. She regularly attends the Youth Advisory Council meetings along with other students. She volunteers at the food pantry weekly. When interacting with customers at the pantry, she is mature, non-judgmental, and remains calm and in control when situations get hectic. Saron is kind, funny, responsible, dedicated, and reliable. I've also heard from other students that she's helpful as a TA in chemistry, so she's helping other kiddos. And she is an absolute joy to be around. She contributes so much to those around her, and that's from Miss Hannah Smith. The one that I really was impressed with was with Mr. Lippy. He says, you are probably the best math student that he's ever had. And he's been there for many, many years.
Wow.
So those are just some things that people said. And I just wanted you to know that I just absolutely adore you.
No, thank you.
And you're amazing. And so I'm just really grateful to have you and to have had a chance to get to know you and just having you involved in all the different activities. You're amazing.
Thank you.
So would you tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about studying at Dartmouth? And
Yeah, so I'm planning to study biology or biochemistry, pre-med track, so like maybe go to medical school in the future and hopefully become a surgeon.
Wow.
So like that's the end goal.
great goal.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. All right. Who would like to start?
May I?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I was really interested, by the way, before I ask the question, we're always not amazed, but we're so pleased that there are so many students in Milwaukie High School that excel in so many different kinds of things, not just sort of one avenue. And you're another great example of that. You have this wide breadth of interest and everything. So you're already a very contributing member of the community, and believe me, that's very much appreciated, and I hope you continue, in those kinds of things through your lifetime. So I noticed that you were a participant in a Habitat for Humanity, process, and I wondered what you felt you gained from that, or were there any ahas, surprises, whatever? How did it work for you?
Yeah, so like originally I was like, I don't know how to build, because it's just construction. But like going there and then like in front of every house you would see the picture of a family, so you know who you're affecting with the work you're doing, and you're just getting someone a stable home that they could be like successful in life. So it means a lot. It means just more than just work. You're
Yeah.
affecting people's lives, so
Yeah.
it's really important.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy?
I hear in all of your achievements and success a lot to be amazed by. And I also hear that it's really grounded in compassion and a connection to people, which, to be honest, is not something you see very often in very many surgeons. So I'm thrilled that you're interested in that, because I think that particular field would benefit greatly from having more people who lead with compassion, as well as scalpels. But I'm wondering what it is about you think that, or what about your life has made it possible for you to see the need for that kind of presence in the world, that compassion that you bring to things, and that sensitivity to people who are in need. Because you Habitat for Humanity, you've also been active in the food pantry at the school. You clearly aren't just doing this for college applications.
No, yeah. So I was born and raised in Ethiopia, so I moved here 2.5 or something, so I joined sophomore year. So it's a lot different in Ethiopia than it is here with the medical access and people's access to surgery. So like for the simplest surgeries, people have to travel to countries like far away and pay expensive medical bills. So it's usually not possible for people. So they usually end up like not getting the treatment they need and passing away quick. So I feel like coming from that background, I understand their perspective. So I could go back to my country and help, and just help people get the treatment they need.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Again, like my colleague said, amazing, impressive list of things you've done, and I see also things you do on campus, like the Community 101 and the Youth Advisory Council. If you had to pick one thing you've done at Milwaukie High School that was your favorite or most rewarding, what would it be?
That's a hard one.
That's hard? Okay, well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. If it doesn't come...
I mean, a lot of the stuff we do is really impactful, but if I had to choose one thing, I think I would choose Relay for Life. So last year, 60 people attended the actual event, and we were able to raise $11,000, which was really... And this is all going to the American Cancer Society, and right now we're just planning meetings and starting to assemble the event and get people to join and go around knocking doors to collect money. So this means a lot, because we're fighting off cancer. It's killed off like a lot of the people we love, and we have to stand and fight. So yeah.
Good. And did you, in choosing to go to Dartmouth, did you visit Dartmouth?
I didn't, but I will in the future, I think, before I attend.
Before you go? So you go this fall?
So I go next year, but I have done extensive research about...
And you know what winter is in New England?
It's a lot different. It's a lot
I think
different.
Councilor Beatty wants you to stay closer to home.
Well, actually, no, I just want to make sure she's prepared. I'm actually going to Dartmouth in 2 weeks. I'm going to New Hampshire to visit some friends, and one of the husband is a professor at Dartmouth in the IT department. So it doesn't sound like that would be your department, but I would be happy to try and do some long-distance introductions to you, so you know somebody
That would be awesome.
in Hanover when you get there. I'd be happy to do that for you. So after, you can find my email address, or the principal can get it for you.
Thank you.
Email me.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations on all of your achievements. It sounds like such a wonderful opportunity to put you on the path to reach your goal of becoming a surgeon, so that's wonderful. Congratulations to the 2 adults who have been filming all the while. I assume that they are in your life, and very proud of you, and your whole community is very proud of you too. So thank you for being part of our community, because I think, as you all have mentioned, I think, one of the delights for me personally, and I know for all of us, is the young people that Principal Gelman, brings to us every month for the Student of the Month. We're just delighted to meet all of you, and you, again, you're just, everything that you're doing is incredibly wonderful, and of course, the grades and all of your accomplishments are so important, and it's wonderful to see that you're going to be able to leverage, all of this great experience into, really launching your future. But I also am just so happy to see that, another student from our Milwaukie community, really engaging in the community and caring for other students and others in the community in the way that you are. So thank you very much. I hope that you will be back in the community often.
I will. My parents are here, so
Well, I look forward to seeing you in the future. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's all the other achievements, all the impressive things you've done in high school are totally to be lauded, but what is blowing me away is that somebody with your skill set and your abilities is choosing to learn a difficult skill further and then take it back to where there's real need for that skill, rather than capitalizing on that and going and living in New York and making a fortune like you could, right? It's very much what most people who get into surgery to do, is make a lot of money, and I think it's incredibly laudable that you are doing that. There are so many places in the world, there are places in America where it's difficult to get medical care, close by. And I think I can't think of a more impressive thing than what you're doing. So thank you for being who you are.
Thank you.
The City of Milwaukie is proud to recognize for outstanding student achievement in academics, civic engagement, and extracurricular activities at Milwaukie High School. Saron Katema. Let it be known to all that on this 21st day of January 2020, the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, recognized this student as an excellent example of the bright future of this community and nation.
Aren't I lucky?
Yes, you are.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you.
Oh, I love my kids. She's amazing. So I know that you're really busy, but you'd like, I don't have a ton of information to give you about Milwaukie, just that we're coming to the end of a semester. So the next meeting, I'll have like data and things like that to share about what we're doing. With our 9th grade team, we're in the process of a boot camp right now after school. So we took some of our kids that were struggling a little bit and called them all in and said, if you don't have these 2 grades up by this time, we're doing a boot camp. And they were like, what? So, and then we called parents and asked for their support, and so it's happening after school for a week before finals, so it just made me think we should do a boot camp every semester before finals for all our students. So I think that's something we might put in place. We did get some data that our graduation rates have just consistently gone up over the last 4 years, and the last year was the highest in the past 4 years. So hopefully this year, and I'm not able to release them at this point because we just got a little peep today. So, but that's the goal, is to continue to kind of like raise the expectations for students because they're able to do it, they're capable, obviously. And so I think if we believe in our kids and we give them what they need, they'll rise to the occasion. Construction's on track. I just walked through today. I got to see some things. Things are in place. They're putting cabinets in. I got to pick out the screens for if we want blackout or all that good stuff. So, that's why I get paid the big bucks. But anyway, so the building's absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to get in there. And, things are going well.
This is a completely random question from your perspective, but I was recently at a presentation from someone from the fire district on emergency preparedness, and the topic came up of where you would go in the event of a major disaster. And I was wondering whether or not the high school, the new future high school, was on that list.
Well,
Or
as
was
far
thinking
as
about being on
where
the list.
people can go, and so yes.
A gathering
So
place
yes.
that's
Yeah.
So
still
we'll
standing.
be a gathering place for like the church across the street has like a preschool, and then they have a school, and the other. What was that?
Not an emergency right now.
Wrong side. Okay.
Picked the wrong shit.
Yeah. So, and then the folks across the street as well, they'll come over, and actually even in kind of the turmoil that we're in, we're still a place for them to bring the little ones to our place if there was any kind of emergency, so.
And what's the seismic fitness level of the new building? It's like off the charts, isn't it? It's pretty high. Okay.
I don't know.
I remember something from our tour that sounded really nice.
Yes, we're doing seismic upgrades to the gym, so they realize that we need to do seismic upgrades to the gym, so we'll do a bunch of that. We began our branding process, so the idea is that we have the same. If you go to our school, there's like lots of different kinds of Mustangs, lots of different kinds of maroons, so we would really like the good gold and maroon colors that Milwaukie was originally had, and so we want to bring those and make sure that that's what we use for everything, and then also land on what kind of Mustang we want to use. So we're working with a graphic designer right now who is going to help us develop a branding guideline book. He just started that, and then we're working with the construction folks because we're going to get a facelift on the stadium. We're getting a new football field. We're getting a new gym floor. So we're really excited about that. It'll have Mustangs running across it. And then our students picked, they got to name the student section last week. I met with my student advisory, and they picked the Stampede, so that'll be the name of our student section. So the kids get to have a voice in how, what we name the commons and different areas, so that when they look back, they can come back and see that they had a little something to do with it, so.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I don't know anything about seismic stuff, though.
No, that's okay.
Well, I would assume, current building standards, it's going to be better than a lot of the
improvement.
buildings around.
Yeah.
Around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Virtually all.
Yeah, and then our old building, fell pretty quickly. So,
You said it came down like like a sand castle.
It was bad. So we're, yeah.
Like, oh, glad I wasn't inside.
And the cool thing, though, is that, like, when we're open for business and people get to come see, we took a lot of things out of the old building and we're using them in the new building. So wood from the old building is being placed in doorways, and we're just using a lot of the stuff. We're doing a historical circle or wheel that is coming from the tree that was taken down. We're having a Mustang that is being carved right now that will be in the main lobby that's out of one of the trees, and it's like 7 feet high standing up. So pretty cool. We're going to bring a lot of some of the old and bring it in with the new, and I think people will really like it.
We're also working with Ms. Gelman to recruit youth applications for city board and committee positions. So if anyone's listening or anyone knows any youth in the North Clackamas area, 15 to 18 years old, the city is recruiting for appointment. We've started to receive applications. So thank you for your help with that.
You're welcome. Hopefully more on mine, but quite a few of mine. Well, there's a handful at least. So,
Cool.
okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You all have a good night.
You too.
Yeah. All right, tonight's consent agenda includes the minutes of the December 3rd, 2019 work session, December 3rd, 2019 regular session, December 10, 2019 study session, December 10, 2019 special session, December 17, 2019 work session, and December 17, 2019 regular session. It also includes a resolution acting as a local contract review board authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for municipal court judge services. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No.
I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Audience participation. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member statements regarding city business. Those wishing to speak must fill out a yellow speaker registration card available on the table in the hall and identify agenda item number 4, audience participation. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because the information provided during the public comment may be new to some councilors, the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Before we begin, are there any follow-up reports from the January 7th audience participation is over?
There were no comments that night.
Okay. So a lot of these, I think, have to do with our resolution.
This one's the home energy score.
And then the home energy score. So I'm going to actually do these during that event rather than have it precede it. So is there anybody that wants to speak on something besides the home energy score or our climate resolution? No. Okay. Cool. Then the next item is the climate emergency resolution, which will be introduced by Councilor Heisey.
Yeah, and I was going to keep it fairly brief. So as you all might have noticed, things are getting a little weird out there. We have a climate that is not working the way it used to, and we have a very clear scientific consensus that that's because of human-caused carbon emissions and other greenhouse gas emissions that we have been making and we continue to make. So this problem isn't going to go away by ignoring it. We've also proven that in the past couple of decades. That approach has only served to line the pockets of people who, I don't know, have really good air conditioning and can afford to figure out ways to not be impacted like the rest of us. So right now, around the world, there are, let's see, I'm trying to pull up the numbers, over 1,300 local governments in 25 different countries that have declared a climate emergency. And those mean different things in different places, but all of them represent a serious commitment to drive down emissions at emergency speed. And in those local governments, over 809 million people are represented. I would love for this to be something that our federal government is taking the leadership on, but as the case is, that's not what's happening, and we actually have opportunities to do something about that at the local level. And more you see around the globe that it's these local governments, it's cities, it's counties, it's townships that are stepping up to the plate and pushing action forward, and that's getting noticed. In the past couple of weeks, we've had major announcements from Microsoft claiming that they are going to commit to not only carbon neutrality, but they are going to cover all of the carbon emissions that their actions have been responsible for since their inception. You have BlackRock, which is one of the biggest investors in the world, and I believe the largest U.S. investor, saying that they are going to no longer invest in fossil fuel companies. So we're at a point where maybe the tide is turning. And this is a great chance for Milwaukie to step up and join that commitment and to underline what we've already done in the Climate Action Plan and to say, look, when we put this together and then it was voted in October of 2018, I believe a week later, the IPCC's major report on climate came out and said things are worse than we thought. So in declaring a climate emergency, we are taking this as an opportunity to say we see that, and we're altering our climate action plan and accelerating those goals that we set for ourselves by 5 years each. And I'm going to mess up which goals those were because I always get it wrong. So if you want to step in right here and say those.
Well, I was going to actually take it one step further.
And some other stuff. There we go.
Well,
There's your segue.
I'm actually intending to read this one. It's a long resolution, and we read a lot of resolutions, and this, I think, is one of the most important ones that we will be voting on this year, and I think it's important that people hear and understand the breadth of the issue. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency, an emergency mobilization effort to restore a safe climate. Whereas in April 2016, world leaders recognized the urgent need to combat climate change by signing the Paris Agreement, agreeing to keep global warming well below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increases to 1.5 degrees centigrade. And whereas the damage done by the current average global warming of 1 degree centigrade demonstrates that the Earth is already too hot for safety and justice, as seen through stronger and more frequent wildfires, floods, rising seas, diseases, droughts, and extreme weather. And whereas, according to the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty, 1.5 degrees centigrade of global warming could expose 500 million people to water poverty, 36 million people to food insecurity because of lower crop yields, and 4.5 billion people to deadly heat waves. And whereas in October 2018, the United Nations released a special report which projected that limiting warming to even the dangerous 1.5 degree centigrade target this century will require a complete transformation of every sector of the global economy by 2030. And whereas climate change and the global industrialized economy's overshoot of the ecological limits are driving the 6th mass extinction of species, according to Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And whereas the United States of America has disproportionately contributed to the climate and ecological emergencies and thus bears an extraordinary responsibility to rapidly solve these crises. And whereas in July 2019, legislators introduced a concurrent congressional resolution to declare a national climate emergency in the United States, and whereas restoring a safe and stable climate requires an emergency mobilization on the scale not seen since World War II in order to reach zero greenhouse gas emissions across all sectors of the economy, to rapidly and safely draw down and remove all excess carbon from the atmosphere at emergency speed and until safe, pre-industrialized climate conditions are restored, and to implement measures to protect all people and species from the consequences of abrupt climate breakdown. And whereas the measures to restore a safe climate include a rapid, just, managed phase-out of fossil fuels, ending greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as possible, to establish a zero-emissions economy, a widespread effort to reduce excess carbon in the atmosphere, a full transition to regenerative agriculture, and an end to the sixth mass extinction through widespread conservation and restoration of ecosystems. And whereas the scale of action necessary to achieve these measures will require unprecedented level of public awareness, engagement, and deliberation to develop and implement effective, just, and equitable policies to address the climate emergency. And whereas Milwaukie can act as a global leader through initiating an emergency climate mobilization to rapidly move from an ecologically and socially and economically extractive local economy to one that is regenerative, as well as advocating for the regional, national, and international efforts necessary to reverse global warming and the ecological crisis. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, that a climate and ecological emergency which threatens our city, region, state, nation, civilization, humanity, and the natural world is hereby declared. And be it further resolved that Milwaukie renews its community-wide commitment to addressing our part in the global climate crisis through the 53 actions outlined in our Climate Action Plan, and enables the acceleration of our climate action goals by 5 years. By 2030, Milwaukie will have no net carbon emissions from electricity use. By 2035, Milwaukee's buildings will have no net carbon emissions, and by 2045, Milwaukie will be a fully carbon neutral city. Be it further resolved that Milwaukie commits to a qualitative update of its climate action plan on a 3-year cycle and to refining those actions as needed to achieve our community's carbon reductions targets through the most appropriate and effective solutions available, with the intent that these actions will result in a just and equitable transition for vulnerable and historically marginalized people. Be it further resolved that the Milwaukie City Council directs staff to include climate impact statements in all relevant council staff reports and motions, much as it currently includes fiscal impact statements. Be it further resolved that the Milwaukie City Council commits to educating our residents about the financial and regulatory actions needed to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as possible in order to achieve our accelerated climate action goals. Be it further resolved that by adoption of this resolution, the Milwaukie City Council hereby declares its support for H-Con Res 52 and S-Con Res 22, expressing the sense of Congress that there is a climate emergency which demands a massive scale mobilization to halt, reverse, and address its consequences and causes. Be it further resolved that Milwaukie calls on the state of Oregon to declare a climate emergency, revise its statewide renewable portfolio standards to achieve 50% renewable energy by 2030 and 100% clean and renewable energy by 2050, and to adopt meaningful climate legislation in the 2020 short legislative session. Milwaukie also calls on Clackamas County, Metro, and the United States Congress, the President of the United States, and all governments and people worldwide to declare a climate emergency, initiate a climate mobilization to reverse global warming and the ecological crisis, and provide maximum protection for all people and species of the world, particularly those most vulnerable to the effects of the crisis. And be it further resolved, in furtherance of this resolution, the City of Milwaukie shall submit a certified copy of this resolution to the President of the United States, Governor Kate Brown, Senators Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden, Representative Kurt Schrader, the Metro Council, the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners, and request that all relevant support and assistance in effectuating this resolution be provided. We didn't pass it yet.
No, but that was a lot of reading out loud.
Oration.
All right, so we have 3 cards right now. Michaela Bishop.
And while you're coming up, I just want to give a shout out to Clackamas County because I believe they just adopted their climate action plan last week. So.
Did you already explain there's 3 minutes?
Yeah, so 3 minutes testimony, if you can.
Hello, Milwaukie counselors, all adults in the room, and all adults that are watching. My name is Michaela Bishop. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a member of Sunrise PDX, who was born in Wilsonville. So I was raised in Clackamas County. I'm aligned with many of your constituents, and I understand hesitation about the climate emergency, and I am here to tell you that there is no room for hesitation. Hesitation is no longer an option. Tonight, I would be joined by many other Sunrise members, but tonight we have our bi-weekly actions meeting because all hands are on deck for this crisis. Our lives, the lives of the people in our community, and the lives of everyone we do not know are at stake. You may say we're one place. Some just call us the suburban metro of Portland. But the city of Milwaukie can make a difference on every other place. We can implement a change today that will have a rippling effect, just as climate change has had an unceasing rippling effect. For example, the ice caps are melting. You may say we're far away, but glacier melt endangers coastline communities that are less than 100 miles away. Our cars consume the fossil fuels and create the carbon that contribute to glacier melt, but ironically, the widening freeways and heightening transit prices make it less affordable for people to transport themselves without cars. Our food is produced by cheap labor imported from communities impoverished by capitalism, produced by people who are commonly without clean water. So you said Clackamas County has declared a climate emergency. That's awesome.
Adopted a climate action plan.
Okay, well, by being the first to declare a resolution, an emergency resolution in Oregon, you can make a difference in this present and future moment. You can begin the transition to clean energy jobs, creating millions of jobs in tactical and service industries. You can increase your personal health, community health, and the health of the planet by incentivizing alternate transportation options like biking and transit. You can pay attention to how your goods are sourced and imported and consumed sustainably. You may say you're one place, but we are one planet, and we are all connected by our actions and choices. Please, the business people, plastic manufacturers, and fossil fuel executives that would refute this resolution are only acting in interest of profit, and they will whisper in your ear that profits are more important than the people's lives that are at stake. Today, I have to believe there was a time when 20-year-olds did not live in fear of an impending global crisis, when people my age did not have to plead with their elders to stop endangering their children's lives. I have to believe there's a place where we live in service to all communities. I have to believe we can create a world together where everyone has access to clean food, clean water, and safe shelter, regardless of economic standing. In this resolution, we look forward, and we see our hands making severe systemic changes. Will your children look back and ask why we did not act in our own favor? In this moment, I am your child. And I am pleading with you to act for all the children gathered tonight somewhere else to fight with me, for all of the children suffering worldwide, for all the children in the Portland metro area and in this city. Act in our favor, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Colin.
Hello? Yeah? Okay, cool. Hello, my name is Colin Herring. I'm here on behalf of the Sunrise Movement PDX as well. I live in Milwaukie, about like 15, 20 minutes away, over on Jennings Avenue. I'm 20 years old, and the IPCC says I have 10 years to reverse the worst effects of climate change. I'll be 30, but even worse than that, my little brother will be 22. That's really scary for me. And that's why I'm here. I'm terrified for what could happen to our world over the next 10 years and beyond. I've spent nights at home in my bed and on my couch paralyzed, just stuck there because the devastation climate change continues to inflict on all of us is exhaustively terrifying. This frightening paralysis is exactly why I joined the Sunrise Movement, and that terror is exactly why we, as a movement of young people, come out in droves to fight for change every chance we get. I don't want to be stuck on my couch or in my bed, doing nothing and knowing the end is coming for me, but that's exactly how many of us feel. At 20 years old, I shouldn't be testifying in front of you, begging you to acknowledge and declare the climate emergency that is so real to everyone in our community. I should be working through school, partying just a little bit too hard, and getting the chance to be naive and make stupid decisions the way the generations prior to mine have been able to do. Instead, I, along with many of my peers, spent all my free time emailing and calling politicians, writing testimony to speak in front of people who refuse to help me fight for my own climate future. And when I can't continue on with those things, I sit on my couch, wishing I didn't feel guilty every time I need to turn up the heat in my apartment. I don't expect you to understand the dread I feel every day because of the climate emergency. We've all lived very different lives, and we feel it in very different ways. What I expect, though, is that you'll hear me, believe me, and understand that what me and many other young people feel every day is becoming more real every moment we go on. The least this crisis deserves is the recognition that it is, in fact, an emergency in every sense of the word, because it is. There's no question in the minds of my peers in this city, community, or country that what we are facing is an emergency the likes of which we've never seen before. I'm here to ask you to acknowledge and move forward with Mayor Gamba's previously stated resolution concerning the climate emergency, because my brother and I, and every single one of my peers, are running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Robertson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Dave Robertson. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy at Portland General Electric. I'm very grateful for the chance to be here, especially grateful for our partnership with the City of Milwaukee on so many ways on the clean energy front. We're here to testify in support of the resolution, your climate emergency resolution. I can tell you one of my goals as the policy nerd at PGE is to make sure that we are on a national level punching above our weight as far as pushing on climate, decarbonization goals that we have, closing our Boardman coal plant, moving to smart grid test beds like we have here in Milwaukee, and deploying electric vehicle charging around the region, including for TriMet. And I can tell you it makes a difference, because I know that going back to testify in front of the other utility CEOs about 10 years ago about closing down the first coal plant in the country, if those guys had had a bunch of rotten tomatoes in their hands, I can tell you I would have been pretty plastered with them, because they were pretty upset that we were doing that we had made that decision, that we collectively with our partners here in the state, our cities, our Citizens Utility Board, the environmentalists that we had worked with, had agreed to do that. And I can tell you right now, being a little guy and punching above your weight actually works. And now I just went back to that same conference in January, and the average climate reduction goal for all the utilities in the country now is 80% by 2050. Now that's not fast enough, and the mayor, every time I meet him, I think my new nickname is Go Faster. Hi Dave, Go Faster, on global climate change work that you guys are doing, and we've got it embedded in our goals, and we're really trying to do that. So I appreciate this resolution. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing and the partnership we have with you and the Energy Trust and the other stakeholders here. I'm happy to hang out and take some questions if you have them, but thanks for taking the leadership role in this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's what I have on this one. Anybody else? Okay. Discussion.
So I had a couple of proposed changes, or additions, I guess. First off, though, I wanted to ask a couple questions, and really are probably staff questions. One is, there are a couple of be it resolves that call on staff action, like every 3-year update of the climate action plan or 3-year assessment. I know we already had an assessment, but is that faster than we originally had?
So when adopted, the climate action plan was at a 5-year kind of reassessment and publication, and this would be moving it to 3 years. So it is 2 years sooner.
Okay, and staff is confident in the ability to do that?
Yeah, we had a robust discussion about it, and part of it was defining kind of what that 3-year product or deliverable would be. I think the challenge when it comes to doing a full climate action plan comes from the technical aspect of doing greenhouse gas inventories and seeing how your actions are actually impacting the carbon in your community. And so instead we were proposing potentially, we're calling it a qualitative update. It's just essentially putting it in metrics that are relatable to the community members, saying instead of how many metric tons of CO2 did you reduce by electrifying your fleet, we would say how many electric vehicles did you purchase? How many electric vehicle charging stations did you install in the community? How many trees did you plant? And that really helps us minimize the amount of work that goes into doing these updates, but then also increases how it translates to community members and relatability.
Okay.
And I think also on the 3-year update too, that we looked at it as not being a sort of that community long process, 18-month process that we did doing that update. So this was more of an internal staff-driven update.
Right. Right. Well, I understood that, but I didn't know how much technological assessment it was going to require, and that's kind of what I was wondering. And then the other one seems easy, the climate impact statements in all staff reports. Some will have no climate impact, and some will have.
So Peter and I actually talked about this, and it's also something we're working on for our community engagement component, is making sure that you all have better information about how each of the staff reports impacts the various council goals. We don't have it figured out yet because we have a 10-day window from when the staff report's drafted to when it needs to be published. But the commitments that I've been asking people for is, can you do this within that window? And the agreement is that yes, we can. On this one in particular, it means that we will have staff, while they're working on a program, contacting Natalie and Peter probably before it's even turned in as a staff report to understand what the climate impact is, and then doing a few sentences into the report with them, that just double checking to make sure that the content's correct in the staff report. But it does add some fingers to the pot.
And it also is a great opportunity to help lift up staff's overall understanding of our climate goals. So
absolutely.
It's a two-way street.
The thinking there was, we have 10 years to get it done. If we didn't check in until halfway through, we might be headed in the wrong direction. So the idea was to check in sooner and a little more regularly. When we wrote it at 5 years initially, we didn't know we had quite such a short clock. We knew we had a clock.
But we're already 2 years in, right? So this is next year we're talking about, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think part of what we want to know is where, besides the number of chargers and all of that, how much closer are we to being net zero electric? What needs to happen on, with natural gas in order to get us to that point, and those kinds of things, so that we just, it keeps it present and keeps us on task.
And so then the other, so I had one requested addition, which is up at the top of, it was, I think, RS 50 in the staff report, and it's in the version we were handed out, it's the top of page 2. So I think just in recognition of the contribution that meat production and cheese production, which I learned a lot more about today reading, makes, I would like us to add something to that. So like after where it says a full transition to a regenerative agriculture system, semicolon, I would propose to add reduction in meat and dairy consumption.
Sorry, I'm not finding.
It's the top of the second page. Yeah, right at the very top.
The very first line?
3 whereases from the end.
All right, so it's still, it's part of the last whereas from the, okay.
From the previous page, yes.
All right.
Yes. It just seemed to me it fit. I mean, it could go anywhere, but it seemed to me it fit after we're talking about agriculture anyway.
Okay, so tell me the wording again.
Reduction, I just was trying to keep it simple, so reduction in meat and dairy consumption.
Okay.
And then my other question was whether the, which is it? The 4th from the last, be it further resolved, says the council commits to educating our residents about the financial and regulatory actions needed to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. I'm not clear exactly what we're trying to say there. If we're trying to inform our citizens about the regulatory actions we need to take consistent with the climate action plan, that's one thing, and maybe that needs a little clarification. If we're trying to inform residents of actions we're encouraging them to take and that all of us have to take in terms of our own energy use, we haven't really called that out anywhere here, and maybe that's a separate bullet, a separate be it resolved, or maybe that was the intention of this be it resolved, in which case I would take out financial and regulatory and just make it be
Actions.
Yeah.
I think that would make sense and encompasses the financial, and yeah, it covers all of them.
And it's probably more useful.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
Just eliminate financial and regulatory.
and replace it with, just eliminate. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think there's some advantage to, I don't want to do anything in the dark in terms of what we're trying to achieve as far as reducing emissions by electricity and natural gas use. So that was the intent there, but I agree that it's too narrow. So making it just action is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with
Why
that.
can't we just add, I mean, I guess I want to just hit the brakes just a little bit. Maybe we can just add something about, is it a personal? Is it adding the word personal in front of financial and regulatory? Because I don't want this to get too far away from the fact that there are actions that we as a city council can take and should take, regulatory actions, including the most important and biggest one that we control, which is our land use. And that also isn't called out here specifically. So I think, removing it, I think in a way, sort of takes away something very important to me. And so I wonder if we might achieve what you want by adding the word personal in front of financial and regulatory.
I don't think that does it. I think we can leave this one and say
and add
a different
actions?
one. But I think this one, financial and regular. I mean, what's a personal regulatory action?
No, personal, financial, and regulatory
Mm-hmm.
actions.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the specifics of financial and regulatory actions that we will be taking are embedded in the climate action plan pretty clearly.
Could I make a suggestion? Personal and community actions? Community-wide actions?
Sure.
That's the language we use in the climate action plan when we
Great.
talk about these sorts of things.
Okay.
And it's a lot more accessible than what I had in there.
Are we putting regulatory, personal and community?
I thought just
Or is it
personal and community.
personal and community
Just
as
personal
one
and community.
of the parts? Okay.
I was suggesting just personal and community-wide actions.
Okay.
Okay. That works for
From
me.
me.
Anything else?
I want to call out Sunrise. Thank you. I've just been following y'all on Twitter, especially vis-a-vis the Portland residential infill project. So I know you all recognize that is one of the most impactful things that a city, especially a city of our size, it's one of the biggest levers that we can pull. So thanks for doing that in our neighborhood, in our neighborhoods. I hope you'll join us because we too will be having those conversations.
And I, too, want to call out Sunrise on the T2020 Transportation Committee. They have been giving extraordinary testimony.
Yeah.
That
has moved the needle.
Without which, I think that that process would have gone in a very different direction. And I think people who are used to just continuing to do work in the old paradigm need to have a cold bucket of water poured over their heads occasionally to wake up to the new reality that we're facing, even when it's not in our face like it is in Australia currently, or in Miami daily, or in Houston every other year. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I would like to help you guys connect to some young people at the North Clackamas High School that reached out to me for some guidance. So we'll make sure I have your email and we'll connect the two. Thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion on this resolution?
Just a question I forgot to ask staff, which is certified copies. We're going to do certified copies of all these. Why did we, I mean, do we care that it's a certified copy? That's just a more burden for staff.
Well, there's a couple of these people that probably won't get it if it's not certified.
Like who? Okay.
I'm thinking of the president for one.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a certified copy, I don't think makes anybody see it. It might make some, it doesn't affect who it reaches in the mail. But it might make somebody look at it more seriously because it's got the certified stamp on it.
Let's have a conversation about that. Maybe all of these don't need to be certified, but maybe a couple of them would make sense, just to draw the attention to the importance of it. Okay. Anything else? Then I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may interject real quick, for the record, there was a version of this resolution included in the packet, and then Councilor Heisey brought an amended version that there are available copies on the hallway that had some revised text, so that's important to note. And then also, it's also important to note that Councilor Beatty also just suggested and Council agreed to some further amendments. Staff's going to have to incorporate that into the final version that we have you sign, and we'll follow up on that. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear that there were 3 versions in, and so.
Yeah, Kathy, can you read the amendments, the original amendment that you put in the 2 or 3 words in that one?
Yeah, it was.
Shoot, you had it written down.
I know. Sorry.
Need a red line.
No, I got it. Where did it go? Darn it.
Bottom of page 2, the last be further resolved, right? Isn't that the?
Yes.
Okay, and it was, this is.
No.
No, this is the change. The printed, I think, already has the change.
It has the printed, but what was published in the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was not tracking what you were trying to achieve.
There were just 2 words, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so in the record, the packet, it read, be it further resolved that Milwaukie calls on the state of Oregon to declare a climate emergency, revise its statewide renewable portfolio standard to achieve 50% renewable energy by 2030 and 100% renewables by 2050. So that was what changed. The phrase was changed from 100% renewables to clean energy.
Clean and renewable.
Clean and renewable.
And renewable.
Clean and renewable energy, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the motion needs to encapsulate all of the, you don't have to detail them, just say as noted from the dais.
The script has been, included that language.
It's on the script, yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
So I move to approve the resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and emergency mobilization effort to restore a safe climate as amended and read into the record by staff and with the 2 further amendments discussed this evening.
Awesome. Yeah.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and emergency mobilization effort to restore a safe climate as amended and read into the record by staff and included 2 other amendments from the dais. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. Passes unanimously. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item is in line with this work.
Stick around.
A little
Like a climate evening.
less,
It's the best kind
a
of
little
evening.
more geeky. Our home energy score at an adoption. This will be introduced by our Public Works Director, Peter Pastorelli, and our Climate Action and Sustainability Coordinator, Natalie Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor Gamba and councilors. We're here tonight to present to council consideration for adoption by ordinance the Residential Energy Performance Rating and Disclosure Program, or our Home Energy Score program. Since we last met in the early part of this month on January 7th. We took the feedback that we got from council at that meeting and made some changes to the code. We made some additional revisions based on some comments that we received since then as well, and have included those in our presentation for discussion. I would mention that certainly this home energy score is directly in alignment with the resolution that was just passed by the council, the climate emergency resolution. But I wanted to go over a little bit of some of the benefits real quickly of what this home energy score does. Really, it's an energy efficiency program. So we're looking at increasing the energy efficiency in our homes. And by increasing that energy efficiency in homes, there's a direct benefit for the homeowner, the person that's living in that home or purchases that home. And that's a decrease in their energy bills, which improves the affordability of housing in our community as well. That decrease in bills, those are dollars that consumer can spend on other things for rent or not rent, but housing expenses and other needs. The Home Energy Score program in general increases participation in energy efficiency programs. It really brings market forces to bear by making the efficiency level of a home visible to home buyers and by allowing them to compare energy efficiency across different homes when they're making what may be one of the most expensive purchases of their life. So those are really the benefits of the Home Energy Score. It's a long-term program. It's not an easy, we adopt a home energy score and there's a dramatic increase in home energy efficiency, but it's a long-term program that sets those market conditions and improves energy efficiency. With that in mind, I'll turn it over to Natalie to highlight some of the changes we made to the code.
I should have been doing this. I'm going to pass out a revised code.
Okay. While she's doing that, it just occurred to me that there's, I think now 3 or 4 other cities that are using our climate action plan as their model. We should probably get word to them that our goals just changed.
We could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Natalie Rogers, Climate Action Sustainability Coordinator. Very excited about today's meeting. So we've been working hard on bringing this program to you guys and transforming it into something that fits Milwaukee. And so at our last work session at the beginning of the month, we took a few comments about the code, primarily adding in reference to the disclosure statements into the code. We added example text in there. The intent of that text will not change. The number of characters that are in those sentences might, just to fit it to the scorecard, but we're going to keep it as close as possible to what you see there. And then we also included a reference to the Low Income Assistance Program in the code. We're hopefully going to be working with Community Energy Project on that Low Income Assistance Program, servicing people who qualify at 80% of the Portland Metro median income, household income. We're also going to be, I'll talk a little bit more just briefly about some of the post-adoption outreach that we'll be doing, and there's a lot of really great projects working with all of our partners focusing on energy efficiency in the area, and Community Energy Project is one of them, to offer some great services to our community members. And then we also received some proposed new revisions to the code as well to further clarify, I think, some of the meanings and definitions in the code. So just to call them out, asset rating and house, there's some concern about confusion of having those in the code. We just removed those definitions from the code. It doesn't impact the intent of the code or how it works at all. We also added additional language, kind of further clarifying covered building and home builder in the definition sections, and you can see that there. We left other definitions the same, even though there were comments or suggestions that they might be a little confusing, because it's taken directly out of our zoning code. And so we wanted to make sure we have that consistent as much as possible. But as that zoning code definition changes through time, we'll make sure to change this as well so that it keeps that clarity and consistency. And then just talking a little about post-adoption outreach. So we understand that once this program is adopted, that's when a lot of the heavy lifting happens to make sure the community members are aware of this program, the intent behind the program, and we also help them make improvements to their own home as well. So we hope that this Home Energy Score program will start implementation on October 1st, and that was an intentional date because it's after the peak seasons for listing your home. So hopefully we can better engage the real estate community. There's also not going to be as many people listing their home in that time in Milwaukie, and so we can make sure to spend a lot of time on outreach and engagement with those folks so they're made aware and they know that they're going to be needing a home energy score, and we can assist them with that process if needed. Some other things we'll be doing is developing web pages with frequently asked questions, information about the home energy score program, resources for people who want to make energy efficiency improvements to their own home. I've already talked to Portland, and they're very kindly offering up a lot of language that they use on their own website, which will be great because it makes it consistent, because the whole goal is to make it as least confusing as possible when we have multiple home energy score programs right next door. We'll also be hopefully submitting a few pilot articles into our Milwaukie community pilot, doing some social media work. We've also, Earth Advantage has been a tremendous amount of help in this process, along with Oregon Department of Energy, and we've been discussing with them doing some sort of training or webinar informational materials for the real estate industry and any professionals operating in Milwaukie. They should, I mean, I'd be very surprised to find some folks who only operate within Milwaukie and don't also sell homes in Portland, so hopefully this will not be a bunch of new folks. However, we want to make sure that everyone is brought up to speed on what we're proposing. And then also, we want to make sure it's very clear how people can apply for low-income assistance, and we want to make it as least burdensome of process as possible. Part of that work is working with Community Energy Project to do kind of a self-attestation of qualifying for low-income assistance, so they can just call Community Energy Project over the phone and do that, and then they just sign a piece of paper once they're there in person to do the home energy score assessment. That relieves some of the burden of having to go online, submitting applications, doing more of a legwork to get a home energy score. And then what's really exciting is there's a lot of projects. This is actually a very well-timed program because there's a lot of work that's going to be happening in the summer and the fall around energy efficiency and energy in the household. PGE with their smart grid test bed. I know Tamara Falls is here today. She's our community relations manager. I've been working really closely with Tamara to make sure we're aligned on messaging, but then also energy efficiency improvements in the owner's home. Energy Trust of Oregon has a suite of incentives. They're also working with Solar Oregon on a Solarize campaign 2.0, so I actually have conversations with them. And we're also doing with PGE a Clean Energy Challenge, which is going to be another packet of great outreach opportunities to talk about energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean energy. And then Community Energy Project is also, PGE has been working with them and quite a few other partners in the area on offering kind of weatherization tutorials and presentations, especially for low-income individuals in the community, but we're going to be reaching out and seeing what else we can coordinate with on home energy score. And so I think that, like I said, this is a well-timed project. I think energy efficiency is on everyone's mind in the area, and this is just a way to help our community do our part. Peter mentioned that building energy is one of the largest, contributors to our greenhouse gas emissions as a community, and the household is an area that's very sacred. We can't impact a lot of changes without people taking the personal liberty to do them, and this is something that we can help guide people on learning more about the energy efficiency of their homes. We can help people make wise decisions when they're looking for a home, wise decisions with their money, even when looking for a home, a consumer protection aspect. And this is just something we can do as a community to hit one of the largest sectors of greenhouse gas emissions in our own inventory. So with that, we actually made it through the slides. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments and suggestions.
That'll never happen again.
Sure.
There were very short.
Pretty hard to get here. This is not the first time we've
It's the perfect program now.
Any questions?
I had a lot of these edits were from my comments, and I am sorry. I appreciate the ones that were deleted because I do think they were not really used in the ordinance anyway. And I'm sorry that our current code, warrants keeping these other titles. It wasn't so much the definitions, but like calling manufactured dwelling something that is mobile doesn't make sense to me because dwelling, in general parlance and certainly in legal parlance, dwelling is a bigger thing than home. And so a manufactured home is a subset of manufactured dwellings. But this definition is clearly about mobile dwellings, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And so I guess it's another thing for us to clean up in our code writing this year. But I did have two more ones I wanted to follow up on. One was the so under the list of things under Home Energy Performance Report, numbers 10 and 11, I know your intent is for the language in those to be, they're things we've discussed in previous work sessions, and that you don't intend that this to necessarily be the actual language that's used. This is sort of just a placeholder or something. I guess I'm still, though, a little uncomfortable about using the not disclosed, because I do feel like it implies somebody's hiding something, and I think a better wording would be was not documented or something like that, because I know our worry was people don't have the receipts anymore to show that they have insulation in those walls or that kind of thing, and it's not that they're trying to hide anything. It's just I insulated my attic when I bought my house, and if you had me have to find receipts for that, I probably couldn't do that. Teach you.
So I would suggest once we have the home energy score template, and at a point where we can actually write the specific language, and then we'll bring back that language and share that with council to make sure that they're comfortable with both disclaimers.
Okay.
So, well, or we're not recorded. Because then it's sort of like it switches. It doesn't really lay blame on anyone.
Right.
It's more passive, which violates different rules you might have.
That's Shane. That's not me.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. I tend to agree. If we can switch one word in here, I think that we can read as amended and still pass this.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not recorded.
Recorded or documented, whichever.
Yeah, something.
Well,
Recorded
make it.
Documented.
Decide.
Documented. I just think it's fine.
I like recorded, but I'll go with either one.
And then the other one is the reference to the lowest income assistance program. I get that we don't want to put in a lot of detail in that because A, we haven't defined it, and B, it could conceivably change over time, and you don't want your ordinance to be too rigid. But I guess I feel like we need to tell somebody where to go to find out about that.
So I think that's going to be a significant portion of the website, as well as the outreach that we'll be doing post-adoption and ongoing throughout the history of the program. I think that's going to be a lot of the legwork that Peter and I will be doing, is talking to community members and directing them to those resources. And yeah, I think we felt that we could not put that specific detail in the code, but that will be a significant portion of the website. It will be a significant portion of, we're going to have a home energy score inbox people will be sending information to, and that could be in like an automatic reply, as this is where you go for that information. So it will be our priority to route people to the right sites and persons for that resource.
Okay.
I appreciate that too, because as you know, one of my main concerns has been putting a burden on householders. I mean, I am especially thinking of like senior citizens who maybe they need to sell their home because they're moving into a retirement community, and you know, it's stressful enough, quite frankly. So I'm really appreciative that there's, you know, going to be money set aside in the budget for low income, and that we've, you know, made that a little broader than what it was before, because that was my main concern about it. I want to make sure that the people who live here now, who have had their homes for 20 or 30 years or 40 or whatever, have the opportunity, you know, to do that without an unfair burden placed on them. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you for the suggestions.
Any other questions?
Don't forget this.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay, thank you very much. So I have one speaker registration cards. If anybody else wants to speak on this issue, please fill one of these out. Jay Ward from Energy Trust.
I haven't seen Jay.
I know.
Hey, Jay.
Counselor? Mayor Gamba, councilors, for the record, Jay Ward, Energy Trust of Oregon, and I'm here to comment on the city's residential energy performance rating and disclosure requirements ordinance. Energy Trust is an independent nonprofit. In Milwaukie, we serve the customers of Northwest Natural and Portland General Electric. We're currently meeting with PGE's Smart Grid Test Bed team to explore ways to support the city and PGE as you seek to advance your clean energy goals, which I think you just changed this evening. So congratulations on that. Pursuant to our grant agreement with the Public Utility Commission, Energy Trust does not advocate for or in opposition to legislative or municipal policy making, so we're here just to add some context. Since 2002, Energy Trust has helped Oregonians save about 724 average megawatts of electricity and 65 million therms of natural gas, as well as to generate about 129 average megawatts of clean renewable energy. And we carry out our mission because the cheapest, most cost-effective energy is the energy we don't use. In fact, Milwaukee citizens and businesses that engaged in our programs just in 2018 alone saved $300,000 on their utility bills. And while carbon or greenhouse gas emissions are not performance metrics for our programs, our work does deliver non-energy benefits, including greenhouse gas emission avoidance. In the 17 years of serving our utility customers, Energy Trust has helped them and our utility partners avoid the generation of 29 million tons of CO2 equivalent. Milwaukie can take credit for 2,442 tons of those. The citizens of the city have both been customers and active partners in our programs, from the Public Works Department early participation in a water filtration project back in 2008 to the most recent project with the Leading Library, which is enrolled in Energy Trust Path to Net Zero program. In fact, all by itself, the Leading Library's solar system will help Portland General Electric avoid generating 23 tons of CO2 each year for the next 20 years. So congratulations on that. As referenced in your Milwaukie Climate Action Plan, energy use in buildings offers immense opportunities for energy conservation and organizational collaboration. Many existing buildings are energy inefficient, and not to mention sources of particulate and carbon emissions. The Energy Trust is already active in this sector, supporting efficiency measures for new and existing residences, multifamily housing, and commercial buildings. But as in other communities throughout the state, there remains additional cost-effective energy efficiency to be acquired in Milwaukee's existing building stock. We have previously assisted the City of Portland in its commercial benchmarking efforts, as well as its residential home energy scoring program. And prospective home buyers are often at a disadvantage during the purchasing process, as a home's energy use history is often unavailable to them, resulting in an asymmetric transaction information and a market failure. Moreover, since many people own their homes for extended periods of time, a building's inefficiency is frequently locked in at the time of purchase until equipment equipment or building envelope failures present themselves. In our experience, residential energy scoring has produced two notable benefits. The first is the scoring process generates a prioritized list of recommended improvements for each home. Owners can then use this list to budget for and implement the most cost-effective energy-efficient measures. The second benefit of the ordinance is the development of a home energy score residential database, which captures key energy information for homes that have been scored. This information can then be utilized to gain insights into relative uptake of energy efficiency measures among different homeowners. And in the case of the City of Portland, Energy Trust is using this information as part of a focused marketing campaign designed to encourage participation in program services and to allow Energy Trust to provide incentives for upgrades. This mechanism could also be used to help the city and Portland General focus their smart grid testbed efforts. Should the City of Milwaukie choose to adopt the proposed residential energy performance rating and disclosure ordinance, Energy Trust can leverage our home energy scoring experience to help the city optimize uptake and help homeowners minimize implementation costs. In closing, I'd like to thank you for your longstanding partnership and work to reduce energy use and dutifully steward your citizens' resources. We look forward to working with you and them to keep Milwaukie a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you.
Mayor, before Jay leaves, may I just make one comment? We received, so he mentioned the Letting Library, and it took a village to build that place. You were on that village, and I really appreciate it. So I just wanted the public to know that ETO, through our various Path to Net Zero projects, contributed $67,000 to that project. So thank you for all your help.
Thank you. If you hadn't, I would have. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Isuz. I wrestle with Community Energy Project, and I just want to speak in support of the Home Energy Score program and let you guys know a little bit of my experience. So I've been working in residential energy efficiency and solar for about 8 years now, and I've been a home energy score assessor since the start of the program in Portland at the very beginning of 2018. And I've scored, I think, just over 800 homes at this point. So I've seen a lot. I've seen like every end of the spectrum of home. And I think it's a great program. Number one, I've talked to a lot of homeowners. I work directly with homeowners and then real estate agents. And I have a lot of homeowners that are now selling their homes, and they're really excited about the program, and they wish that something like that had existed 5-10 years ago when they bought their home, because they didn't realize how much work a 1920s bungalow was going to need to be energy efficient. So they, they're really in support of this program, and I think it has actually sparked an interest in home performance and residential energy efficiency in general. We get quite a few homeowners who are not actually selling their home, but they schedule a home energy score with us just because they want to know what's going on in their home. A lot of people don't know what type of insulation they need or how much they need of it. I have a lot of homeowners who don't even know where their attic hatch is, and we get to explore together. So I get to, spend time out in these homes and just like super geek out with these homeowners about energy efficiency. And it's really exciting when I get those people that have been sparked by the program that are not actually moving, and they just want to know what's going on in their home and potential ways that they can do upgrades, which is another service that we provide as well. So it all kind of goes hand in hand with CEP. But yeah, and then one thing, on the question of the undisclosed. So I read the ordinance, and my interpretation of that was, so when we're out on site, we don't include things like smart thermostats or light bulbs or appliances like refrigerators, washer dryers, where a lot of people do have like the high efficiency options, because we can actually physically inspect attics to see the insulation. We have a few different tricks to be able to identify if there's insulation in the walls and that kind of thing. So my interpretation of that was that it was just specific to things that smaller appliances that we don't include in the report, since it is, well, the language has been taken out now, but an asset rating. So just my thoughts on that.
Thank you, because we were under the impression that there was no inspection of existing installation unless it could be seen directly just walking.
Yeah, no, we have a few different ways to check for that. So like we, at least at CEP, we have infrared cameras. And also it's really easy to check for a wall insulation. If you just pop off an outlet plate on a wall that's externally facing and you just poke like a chicken skewer, you can feel the insulation.
So no receipt.
It's really simple.
For our attic.
A lot of times homeowners don't have the receipts, so that's why we actually go out on site and physically, like I am going in people's crawl spaces and attics and all the like gross places that no one wants to go. So
thank you for your
doing
service.
that.
yeah, thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very illuminating.
Yeah.
And I would, the point that was made, we took advantage of ETO's program for my 1912 bungalow, and it made a significant difference in the energy usage of that building. So I strongly recommend it. And now there's a way to have it pre-checked to see how much you will need. Okay, so any discussion? Then I would entertain a motion.
I move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending the municipal code by adding a new chapter 16.40 adopting residential energy performance rating and disclosure requirements as amended and read into the record by staff with the one additional change made from the dais.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded for first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending the municipal code by adding a new chapter, 16.40, adopting residential energy performance rating and disclosure requirements, as amended and read into the record by staff and as amended from the dais. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. So, Ms. Ober,
Yes.
would you please read by title only twice?
Sure. An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending the municipal code by adding a new chapter, 16.40, adopting residential energy performance rating and disclosure requirements, as amended and read into the record by staff and amended by at the dais. Again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending the municipal code by adding a new chapter, 16.40, adopting residential energy performance rating and disclosure requirements, as amended and read into the record by staff and amended on the dais.
Mr. Staff, would you please poll the council?
Councillor Parks.
Yes.
Councillor Heisey.
Aye.
Councillor Beatty.
Aye.
Council President Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Gambo.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. Ordinance 2187.
Very good. Thank you all. Good work. that was a struggle. So remind me, does that make us the second city that's passed one of these in Oregon?
Hood River, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well done. All right, our next item, Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan Adoption. And this will be presented by our Police Chief, Luke Straight, and our Emergency Manager, Steve Hufford. I am never going to get it right, Steve. Hufforditz. I just don't hear it frequently enough, though. It sticks.
You just got to kind of sound it out. The E is Hoffeditz. I know when you look at it, it just throws you.
What is it?
Grew up that way.
What does it mean in German?
I don't know.
Okay, I guess it might not be a.
Means or you just don't know?
Both.
I assume it's German.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was told by my parents, yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Gamba, Council President Falconer, and members of council. My name is Luke Straight. I'm the police chief for the city of Milwaukie, and with me tonight, as we discussed, is Steve Hoffeditz, our emergency manager. We're here this evening to review and recommend adoption of a resolution for the recently updated Milwaukie Addendum to Clackamas County's Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. The mission of that plan is to promote sound public policy designed to protect citizens, critical facilities, infrastructure, private property, and the environment from natural hazards. By adopting the Milwaukie Addendum to the Clackamas County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, the city will be eligible to apply for disaster relief and emergency assistance grant funding. The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires that jurisdictions maintain an approved plan to receive federal funds for mitigation projects. The purpose of the plan is to meet requirements for plan adoption, plan participation, having a mitigation strategy, and ongoing risk assessment. Goals of the plan include protection of life and property, enhancing natural systems, augmenting emergency services, encouraging partnerships for implementation, and promoting public feedback. The Milwaukie Addendum to the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan was developed in 2003 and has been in place and regularly updated since that time. Retired Chief Bartol served as the prior addendum convener during the 1819 process when it started. And our emergency manager, Steve Hoffitz, will serve as the convener during the implementation and maintenance phases of this plan. The process, participation, and adoption phases are designed to comply with the requirements established in 44 CFR 201.6, which establishes the mitigation planning requirements for states and local communities. The Oregon Partnership for Disaster Resilience at the University of Oregon's Institute for Policy Research and Engagement collaborated with the Oregon Office of Emergency Management, Clackamas County, and the City of Milwaukie to update this plan. Changes to the plan include revision of the city's risk assessment and hazard identification sections, as well as the plan mission, goals, action items, and updated community profile. This plan is designed to work in conjunction with other ongoing city plans and programs such as the Comprehensive Plan, the Capital Improvement Plan, and building codes. The mitigation actions described are designed to be implemented through these previously existing plans and programs within the city. Those plans and policies already have support from citizens, businesses, and policymakers. Leading up to the next review process in 5 years, the Hazard Mitigation Action Committee will be reconvened and its participating members reviewed. The convener will question if there are new partners which should be brought to the table, if there are new local, state, or federal policies influencing natural hazards, if the community has implemented any mitigation activities since the plan was last updated, and if there have been any hazards, and if so, how the plan served those hazards, if it worked effectively or not. In closing, that's intended just to be a quick 5-minute overview of what the plan is, what the purpose is. We are asking council to adopt Milwaukee's addendum to the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan through resolution.
Thanks. One of the issues that we've run into regarding flooding in the area is that the FEMA maps are exceedingly out of date. Is there any portion of this process by which we push on them a little bit to update their maps so that we have a better idea? Because, you know, allowing us to build more housing in a place that's going to flood due to the changing weather patterns is kind of counterproductive to what we're doing.
I know that the maps that we refer to and that are attached were updated, and that Steve worked with GIS and Nick to get updated maps in there, but I didn't, or we didn't look at it from that particular perspective. So that's something I'd have to check back on.
So what, do you know what Nick was using for data on that?
I don't know what he was using. I know we did reached out to him to see if we could get updated, and he had some. And so he gave us the latest he had.
It's still the 1985 or whatever it was FEMA map. Okay.
Really, they're that old?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, they don't get around very often, and unfortunately, in this day and age, that's way too long. Okay, cool.
Cool.
It should be noted, and I didn't mention that Councilor Beatty noticed one section in the plan, which he pointed out to us, that wasn't worded ideally as it related to the public involvement or the opportunity for public involvement in the plan. Based on her recommendations, we submitted some amended language to Michael Howard, who's the manager who coordinates this project. He accepted that language, and I do have that new language here with me today, which I can read into the record.
Okay, thank you.
The new recommended language that has been accepted says, and this is on page MA-4, is how it's labeled at the bottom, the first narrative paragraph, which states, public participation was achieved by posting the natural hazard mitigation plan publicly and providing community members the opportunity to make comments and suggestions during the review process. Community members were also provided an opportunity for comment through a survey administered by Clackamas County, referenced in Volume 3, Appendix G. The Hazard Mitigation Action Committee served as the local review body for the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan's development and was comprised of city officials representing different departments and sectors. And again, that is the amended language.
Any other questions or comments? Okay,
I was pleased to see that we had some language in here that referenced the climate action plan. And, you know, I know that the interface between that document and this one is going to be nebulous by nature, but the reference is good to have in there.
And I think that's one important aspect of this plan, although it's kind of a high-level overview to guide us through mitigating hazards. It's intended to integrate with our other previously existing plans and processes and programs. So by all of our directors becoming familiar with this plan, it gives us the opportunity to look for ways we can incorporate these recommendations. But the action items are not mandatory, and they're not funded, so we just look for opportunities where we can incorporate those over the course of the next few years.
Okay, that answered one of my questions, because I was like, oh, these action items are great, because you look at the part of the plan where it ticks off what we did since the 2013 plan, and it isn't very much.
And I do think we've set ourselves up for better success now. I had no previous involvement, nor did Steve Hoffeditz, with the city's natural hazard mitigation plan, but it was always assigned out as an additional duty to someone who had a full-time job. We do have someone now who focuses on these kinds of things, and if we use the Hazard Mitigation Action Committee, which is comprised of key city staff, and they're all familiar with the plan, and we could meet several times a year and review things that are going on with this within the city and ways that we can incorporate those action items and recommendations into the city's normal business. I think we'll have better luck.
Well, and there's something to be said for the relationship building that goes with that, because any sort of disaster preparedness or in an actual disaster, having had those conversations and having developed those relationships between staff is going to be one of the most valuable things we've got, regardless of what's on paper here. So I think that that's a really nice thing that this plan is helping to facilitate.
Absolutely.
And the timing of updating it and updating the comp plan is good also too. Hopefully we're building more connections like that. I did notice at the beginning somewhere there's the dates for this adoption and they still say 2019. So I assume that will get updated to say 2020.
Yeah, Michael Howard will update those dates once he knows that we have adopted it. And we've been in ongoing communication with him.
Anything else?
Looks great.
Well, there was and I sort of called attention to it in our work session. The sheet on demographics appears also to be, would be a simple update to pull the most recent demographic information from the census.
So the
Table MA4 community characteristics.
When we make the motion tonight so that we can adopt it, what I would love is if in the motion you would just say, as amended by staff, to include the correct census data. And that way we'll just go back through, make sure that we have it correct.
What page is that?
It's on page RS 81.
So we do have more recent than 2018?
Well, it's these are taken from estimates or projections at certain times, and I assume this was just printed off before the current projection. So, like, for example, the median household income is now 63,000, and here it's still being recorded as 55.
And I want to make sure that we have several conversations with all the parties involved in that before we say which is correct. So that's the other piece of this, is I don't want to say which direction we're going, just that we will make sure that the correct information is in the modified version.
I went to the census website.
You did find it. They were right.
Too. Yeah. Yep.
They were
It's
right.
a 63 number.
It's
amazing.
Is rising at an unsustainable.
It's not rising, that's skyrocketing.
Yep. And you're absolutely right. That's not an indication of our people are doing better. It's an indication of people are being displaced.
And just because this happened during the work session, we've alluded to a conversation now. Would you mind, Councillor Faulkner, just talking briefly about what the...
Sure. I mean, what that indicates to me is that our median household income is rising at a pace that would be unprecedented if it were simply a matter of increased household income. But because what we know is that most of our residents well, I should step back. What we know from data about incomes is not that they are rising at the same rate that our median household income is rising. And so what that indicates to me is that there are a substantial number of people who are moving out, and the people who are moving in enjoy a much higher annual household income.
And just so that they know the variable, what was the difference between the
Well, just in this report, we've got 55,000 recorded as our median household income, and according to the U.S. Census website, currently it's at 63,421, and before that, the housing needs assessment had it recorded at a lower rate. So we know that this is a very fast occurring change. That document was dated 2016, and we're only 4 years out.
Thank you.
It's almost a 20% increase in 4 years. It's amazing. All right. Anything else? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution adopting updates to the city's addendum to the Clackamas County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan as amended and read into the record by staff. And amendments.
By staff to reflect the current census data.
Correct.
And correct the dates.
Yeah. So Scribner errors, just so it's well recorded in the motion. So it's Scribner errors, and it's also for data that has substantially changed since the draft report was done, and we can get you that.
Sounds good.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution adopting updates to the city's addendum to the Clackamas County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan as amended and read into the record by staff, also as amended by staff to reflect the current census and to correct Scribner's errors. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have the Design and Landmarks Committee, the annual update, and this will be introduced by Associate Planner Brett Kelver. It's another one. I always do that. Known him forever. How long have I known you, Brett? Do you guys want to come up? Members of the DLC? We can squeeze a couple other chairs in there and... Thanks.
Anybody want the comfy chair?
Thank you. See you guys.
Very good.
Awesome. Is this the entire committee? That's impressive. I don't think we've had another meeting where the entire committee have made it.
Nice work.
No, it's been a long time, anyway.
So remember that if you speak, make sure you have the mic, because it's being recorded and broadcast, and people can't hear if you don't. So let's start with introductions and go from there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. We are happy to be here with the full Design and Landmarks Committee at our slightly delayed but annual joint check-in session with you. So I'm Brett Kelver, Associate Planner with the city. I work as the staff liaison for the committee.
I'm Mary Newstatter.
Tracy Orvis.
Cynthia Schuster, Chair.
Brett Lorla, Co-Chair.
Evan Smiley.
All right. So we, there has continued, since our last update, we have had, as you can tell, a few changes in the committee, but we are fully fitted now with a full committee, and it's exciting to have all the members on board. I think part of what we are wanting to do tonight is just give an opportunity for some discussion about the proposed work plan or work program for the coming year. The members may have some things they want to add to that, and you may have some questions for them. But I guess to lead into that, I'll just say that the main focus of the work plan for the coming year is what it has generally been for the last year or two. The committee has been very diligently and methodically working through the downtown design review process with the intent of making it work better, of kind of meshing. I think we talked about this a little bit before, making sure that whatever standards there are in our code meet whatever guidelines we have. And we could get into details if you want about the process and all that kind of thing. But the current setup of things is not ideal. Not everything is in the code, and there are some gaps or some things that just don't match up. So depending on the process that an applicant is going through, it's not a perfect system. So especially with the coming update to the comprehensive plan, it's a really good opportunity, and the committee is really interested in trying to kind of make a final push to complete that work so that we can bring the Planning Commission and then you, the council, some proposed amendments to that process. Of course, we'll make sure that they are fitting in with the policies and things that have been identified in the comprehensive plan. So it's good timing for all this. So maybe a little serendipity there. I guess I'll just say a couple final points. We will be making a concerted effort over the next couple months to kind of bring the work closer to completion. There's still a lot of things to discuss. The members have been focusing on a lot of details about windows, doors, building materials, those kinds of things. We have yet to delve in quite as much as we want to, I think, on the topic of applicability of the process, making sure that it seems appropriate, the scale of project or the type of project, whether it's meeting standards or guidelines, and just making sure all that fits. So with that in mind, I guess, is it fair to ask if any of the other members have anything they want to say, and then maybe we'll just take some questions from you guys?
Sure. Anybody? Yeah. All right, so I do have a question. As you guys have been working over the last couple of years and also going forward, are you referencing the vision and to some degree the climate action plan in your thought process? Because every decision, right, has an impact on something, and I would hope that in our effort as a city to de-siloize things so that we're all sort of working towards the same goal. Those are kind of our North Stars at the moment. So that's the question.
Go ahead, Brett.
I'll take a quick crack at that. I'd say immediately no. The climate action plan has not been kind of the North Star of this group in terms of providing the lead direction. I think it's something that, along with the policies that are in the comp plan, will be something that will be more of a finishing thing for the group. I think it's been fair and realistic to be focusing on the actual design elements themselves. Obviously, when you're talking about building materials, there's an opportunity, I suppose, to look at sustainability issues, but that is not to say that there isn't overlap. I mean, there is a green architecture or green building type of component in the design review process, and so there, in some way, there has been an effort to at least be aware of that we have those goals in the larger city. But I guess I think that it's a really good question. It's something that I think we can fit very well into the kind of refinement or polishing part of it. I think there's still been a lot of gross material to work through and pull together, but I think that's a great reminder that that's part of the expectation that you have, and that will be a good way to check and make sure that it is all going to work together. I'd say largely the focus has been on trying to sort out the design aspects of it. I don't know if anyone wants to say anything else about it.
Yes, I will. I'll just kind of talk about that a little bit. So what we've been trying to do is get very clear objective standards. So we've been trying to work on kind of beefing up the standards a little bit so it's clearer for people, and probably updated to more current times. Like you said, yes, energy is important. The other thing we were doing is we did look at the comp plan at one session where we kind of went through it and reviewed some things. And so I think there's some question about, one of the goals was the process, 8.3, where it talks about defining 2 paths for the process. And I'm not quite sure the details of that or how that's going to change the process for the downtown zone. So I kind of had that question. I don't know if anybody can answer that, but right now what we have is we have a type 2 or a type 3 process. And I didn't know if that was going to change to more like a type 1 where you actually have to meet the standards and then you get to go under a type 1 process, or whether if you don't meet the standards, you get to go through a more discretionary type 2 process. I wasn't sure if things were going to change there, and so we've had that question that we bat around a little bit. But other than that, does anybody else have anything else?
I have one, just because I'm curious. I'd like to see council and the planning commission utilize our services more. An example, I'm just going to throw this out, the Letting Library Pond House, which is the old Samuel's house, is up for sale. It's a perfect opportunity for an energy efficient, maybe affordable housing project to be built, maybe 12 units on that site, something like that. It's just an opportunity that it's up for sale. Anybody can buy it. But for the city to be able to do that and maybe put into place some of those energy requirements that they're talking about. It was just a thought that if that was brought up to us as the Design and Landmarks Commission, that might be something that we could provide feedback to you in the sense of either there or the Planning Commission, of just a thought process that maybe it went out for an RFP for a smaller developer or something like that. We have plenty of development sites here that the city's looking at, but was something that came to mind just recently as my office is just up the road, driving by and seeing it for sale. I was like, I'm going to call a couple of developers. So it's just one of those things that to utilize our experience in things other than in the design and landmarks, but design is a fairly large term. So anyway, it was just something that I thought that you might think about as things come up like that.
Well, I guess your question, their mandate, as the building standards increase, which, we've been lobbying for heightened building code standards on the energy efficiency, that's really where those measures come in. How much do you want to pin what they're doing with the design criteria to that? Because that's going to change and evolve over time, and that's still going to be a requirement.
Sure. Just throw out as an example, and I can't remember whether you guys were engaged on this or not, so forgive me, but when we looked at the work we were preparing to do on this building, we were talking about the windows on this building, right? And there was a balance there of how much do we weigh towards historic look and how much do we weigh towards an efficient window? And so that's why I asked the question about looking at the vision and then the climate action plan to sort of build into your mix of thought processes around your decision making. And it's just one little example, but I think that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about.
And actually, on that example, the group was involved in that, in part of that discussion because the City Hall has the historic designation, and so they did have some discussion, I think, about some of those, the push and pull of those.
But I mean, that's a perfect example where, I think the recommendation or where we were headed when that happened was those indoor storm windows. So you keep the old look, but you put on an interior storm window. And I actually bought those for my house this year. And they're pretty good. They're pretty, I didn't do every window in the house, and so I can't do an absolute comparison of kilowatt. And of course you can't because 2 winters are different, but I have seen a reduction on my bills and because of using them. So, I mean, I don't think it's always an either or. I think there are solutions.
Well, I was talking about wrestling that question.
Right.
Well, I do want to add that we actually did consider when we were looking at the percentage of glazing for buildings that we didn't want to put a number out there that would exceed what the energy code's going to allow before it takes you to do more of other stuff in order to trade off to have all that glazing. And so we have talked a little bit about stuff like that as we kind of go through the design elements, green roofs. And
we also have 3 practicing architects on the committee. So.
That's awesome.
So we're ultimately very familiar with
I bet. Yeah, as Lisa alluded to, we're Kathy and I predominantly are working with another group to try and push the energy code statewide a lot faster, and if not that, then a group of cities. I think there's 6 or 8 of us that are looking to use a different process to have our energy code be a higher standard than the state code. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, they do it in other states.
Yes, they do.
Because I have worked in other states, like Scottsdale. They have like a prescriptive path where you can, if you meet it, that's fine, but they still want to see that you're 15% better than code, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oregon is odd in that we're precluded at this point from having a standard that's different than the state standard, but that's why we're doing this process.
Great.
I guess I'll ask if knowing that we're headed in your direction, that later this year the hope will be that that we'll take the proposed design review amendments to the Planning Commission and then on to the City Council. Is there anything that you can think of, in addition to your opening question and comment about vision and climate action plan, is there anything else that you can think of right now that it would be helpful for us to be reminded of or keep in mind as we're trying to push this closer? Things that you can anticipate you might want to ask about or know about when we get.
Right. I don't know how. I'm trying to imagine a scenario, but our other biggest goal is housing affordability, and we are trying to attack that from every possible angle and just ways to make buildings less expensive in general so that the rents aren't higher than they would necessarily need to be, ways to allow new forms of housing that are because of what they're less expensive.
Housing that have been made illegal.
New forms that were old forms,
decades.
exactly. Yeah, cottage clusters, multiplexes, SROs, single
room occupancy.
Single
room occupancy.
Yeah, boarding houses. Things like that. So, I don't know how that would come into your mix, but that's our other major goal that we're engaged on right now. So the more minds, the better. particularly when you have a group of architects in the mix. That's very useful.
Well, and I think the work plan acknowledges some of the other tasks of the committee as well. Some of them are hard to plan for, like their role in a certain review process. So if we get certain applications that require some kind of historic review or an actual design review application, we're hoping to get lucky. I mean, not to not have things happen, but if we could get lucky with another little break to be able to continue to focus on this work. But the group may have to shift its effort at a particular meeting if an application comes up. And then beyond that, looking beyond a little bit the design review piece, I think we've indicated, a couple of placeholders for some other things that the group would like to take on in the future, like getting into historic preservation, looking at our historic preservation and historic resource code. And so hopefully that's something that if we can get this design piece wrapped up, we can maybe shift gears and get into that sometime before the end of the coming year.
Yeah. Well, I totally look forward to that. I hope you're able to get through the design review, because we are going to have more applications coming, and so getting it cleaned up is important for its own right. But I also hope you're able to get to historic preservation, because I think we're really behind and haven't done anything on that in 30 years. And we're about to, launch into code rewrites, and I think we have to be thinking about that piece too. We can't be doing it without thinking about that piece. So.
Yeah, can I say something?
Sure.
And in doing a historic resource survey, it's not an easy task. I mean, it's fairly comprehensive. You're looking at every building that's 45 years or older. And so those are a lot of buildings. And I'm just wondering if we have the kind of support we're going to need to be able to do that.
So that's a budget committee question. Your timing is good, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it would be good if you had some kind of proposal as to what that would even look like to even present to the council and the budget committee.
And it may need to,
that's the first step.
Here comes the city manager to protect her budget.
It's actually not my budget, it's staff time. So when we had a discussion about new code rewrites and packages, we said that during this next 2-year period that you all had made selections about where you were going to be spending your time. I really appreciate that Denny, in that conversation, actually made sure that the code component of what you're working on is included in that package, but we do not have staff resources for the next couple of years to go beyond that, and if we do, we need to revisit what we're going to be giving up.
Yeah.
And then there's Denny signing up for more work for his replacement. So it's
I see how it is.
We are budgeting to do historic and natural resource inventory work after we do the housing work.
Okay.
And it's in the draft budget, whether it survives the process or not.
Well, I guess one piece of advice I might have would be to think about, is there a way to scale that work, or are there pieces in that historic review process that would be critical to get in, and so that we can acknowledge that we have limited resources and still make sure that we're doing the most important things that we possibly can.
You have to scale these, you really do, and you start looking at the areas where you think they're most important historically and what kind of pressures they have on them, and then you move from there. So yeah, you do scale it.
Yeah. Any advice or input you have in how to do that? Y'all are smart. So.
Cool.
If you don't have any other questions, we're happy for the time. Any other questions from you guys?
Okay. Thank you all for coming in.
Thanks for coming in. That's great.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out most of the
I'm kidding.
All right.
Thank you.
Council input on legislative and regional issues. Kelly, do you have anything?
So many things.
Nothing. There's
She's
nothing
carrying
going on out there.
papers.
It's quiet.
She's got a whole book for us. Look at that.
One of the things it's doing something.
Leave it there now.
Yeah, they sent out their summary, and I said, well, I guess I won't send it. I was just
And what?
Once I saw they had sent out the summary, I went, well, I guess I won't bother.
Yeah.
I would have said things differently, but that's fine. Get the idea. Thank you.
You've been pulling microfiche.
That's what I'm.
Is that microfiche?
I'll explain it.
It is. I'm just saying there has to be a story behind this.
Because you're not supposed to do what I'm doing, so. I don't have much. This can go fast if you want. This is my cheat sheet. So this is really all I know about that's related to what we talked about last time. So the microfiche version of LC 25, that's because I got a picture of it. I took that picture, I emailed it to myself, and I printed it on that paper for you. It's really classy.
I feel like this is sort of what it should look like, right? These like archaic.
Yeah, I know. It's sad.
It's too bad we don't have this on the screen. Wait, we can take a picture.
I know. You could take a picture of the picture that I took a picture of and print it, and then I could put it up there. Anyway, y'all are making me laugh. But so all you need to see from that is that it is very narrowly crafted, clearly, to apply just to Happy Valley, which is what we expected. When asked what we think about this bill, I have said what I've said before, which is we understand it's time to move on, but we really, really, really care about Milwaukie Bay Park. And we believe that there's a plan to get us to construction by 2021, and that is very important to us in relation to this bill. So that is kind of what I just continue to tie the two things together. If you were asked about it and you need me to talk to someone, or I would love just to hear if you have talked to anyone about it, this is Karin sending it to us via text is why it looks like that. LC 19 is the cap and trade bill. I emailed y'all more than you already had it. It should cover, I won't go over that, but if you have any questions or need us to follow up with LOC on anything you're reading, let me know, and I'm happy to assist with that. LC1 is the broadband grants bill that LOC mentioned in their report. I did find that there is an LC draft, LC 38, at least I don't have a copy of it, for gun control. That is something you'd mentioned wanting to kind of stay in touch with. What it seems, even though I haven't read the LC draft, I don't have a copy of it, the reporting seemed to indicate that it's pretty similar to what's in the ballot initiatives.
And so is that a strategy to just enact something rather than have it go to the ballot? I mean,
I think it's the same dual strategy potentially that's playing out in climate. Just because you have something that's going to the ballot, it means you could potentially have something move through the legislature in an effort to forestall the need for that. So it seems to be a similar approach, but again, I don't have the language, so I can't tell you really what's in or out. I just wanted you to know that it's in the hopper, and it seems like we will see a bill. So the bills have all been submitted, but they haven't, you can't go online and right now and find them. Okay. Yeah, which is why I'm sending you weird pictures of them and telling you what I think is in them.
So the broadband grants, we don't know what's in that?
That one I think is the exact same bill as last time. So I could send you.
That was all about rural areas, wasn't it?
I believe so. It was $5 million, and it was coming out of Business Oregon's pot, but it was a priority for the league last time, and it's a priority again. And I can happily send you that text because I think it's exactly the same as what was put forward last time.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
It's rural.
Predominantly aimed at rural.
Yeah,
rural communities that don't have.
Right.
It wasn't something we were tracking for our benefit.
It's not. I don't think it's going to affect us.
And then, Mayor, you had asked about prevailing wage and enterprise zones. I haven't seen or heard of anything dropping related to it, but I just wanted to make sure I know what you're talking about, if that's okay.
So,
oh, it's not.
Senator Taylor was chairing the work sessions on it. And as of last report at the Metro Mayors, it had essentially fizzled.
Okay.
They couldn't get labor and whomever was on the other side, presumably business on the other side of that, to come to any kind of remote agreement. So
you think it's not moving?
But I think it needs, we need to keep our eye open for it.
What's this one? This is the one where they were attempting to make more projects and enterprise zones eligible.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll keep an eye out for it, but it sounds like potentially it's not really moving in the short session.
It may not be, yeah.
Okay. And then I think that's all I had.
Okay. Well, I was in a meeting with the governor and her staff and a bunch of other people on Friday regarding LC-19. It actually got named while we were in the meeting, which was weird. There are sort of 3 versions of that bill currently floating. There was some conversation that was starting to coalesce them. I'm trying to think of the high points. Basically, they're a lot of the things in the bill that would cause particularly transportation energy expense to increase were going to be rolled out in 3 sectors. So the first one is the metro region, which would be immediately or whatever in a year. 2022. The second one would be sort of the Willamette Valley, which was like 2 years later.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the state was something like 6 years later. The funds that would then result from those charges would only be available to those areas that are paying into those charges.
And areas can opt in.
And areas can opt in earlier. Trying to think, what were the other high points?
Those funds are transportation dollars, which means that unless the Supreme Court ruling does something we think it won't do,
they have to be used in right-of-way.
Yeah.
So we can't use them, say, to buy more buses or to build bike trails or, say, bike bridges across rivers or anything like that.
Yeah.
They have to be used in road right-of-ways.
Yeah.
The funds from the transportation portions of the cap. So when your gasoline, well, you don't buy gasoline anymore.
Nope, no more gasoline.
Gasoline that you're buying or the diesel that you're buying goes up. Those funds actually, unless the Supreme Court surprises us all.
Are you saying state Supreme Court or U.S.
State
Supreme Court?
Yeah. And I apologize, I didn't get notes out about this, but we had a presentation at JPACT that was from Randy Tucker, who's the Metro staffer who's been working on LC-19 with the governor's office, and he was not sounding super optimistic either about the bill's chance for passage or for the Supreme Court ruling to do anything that would liberalize our opportunities to spend those dollars differently than any other gas tax.
The governor was more optimistic, and
Randy's always a little pessimistic. So.
He is, and I would note that the Secretary of State's decision to disallow those 2 ballot measures was reversed by a judge.
Yes.
So that is now a sword hanging over the heads of the Republican senators, and presumably House members as well. They could walk out, I guess. That if they choose to do that, then us hippies in the metro region will just pass something that they're stuck with that'll be far more onerous and...
But the ballot measures still have to collect signatures, right?
I mean, speaking in Republican, I'm channeling my little brother.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
No, but they don't have the signatures. They have to collect the signatures.
Oh, I don't think that's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll do it.
That's
Kelly?
Yes.
I just got a note from Renew Oregon, and they mentioned SB 1530.
Okay.
A climate bill. And it was off to a good start, but it's too weak. But big polluters and lobbyists are flooding lawmakers with demands to weaken the bill even more. They want to know if, we, whatever, would take some action in talking to, but I don't know just what
that's the Senate version.
1530 is about.
We got a number?
Of the cap and trade?
I think so.
What'd you say, SB 1030?
1530.
Okay, can you
So what's the
forward?
difference between these LC
Text is
numbers?
from Renew Oregon.
So the LC is only there till you get your bill direct
Official, I
number,
see.
until you get the bill number.
Okay.
So that's what I had, the best number I had. So LC 19, as you know, the mayor said, it sounds like there's a few different versions of that. It got a number in the meeting, and I don't know if 1530 is what you just described.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I mean, this is new information for me, so.
And you said it's Renew?
Renew is on top of
Yeah,
it,
Renew
so
Oregon.
they will know.
If you forward it to me, I can run it.
Yeah.
Run it down. Do you all expect that that's something?
That we will write a resolution in support of, I suspect. I mean, generally speaking, the cap and invest bill, I would suspect we will. I agree with Renew that it's already a watered-down version.
Yeah. You did just do it. I think you can easily pull information from it, but because of the shortness of the session, if you want something specific, I'd make sure that we have it for the next meeting.
Next meeting, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
Oh, because it concludes on March 8th.
yeah, this is fast.
Yeah.
Really fast.
And when is our first March meeting?
Well, I think we could have something out for the first February meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm already jumping to
You're a
March.
month ahead.
Yeah, I'm a month
Are you
ahead.
on vacation already?
I am.
Take us with.
Thank you for flagging that. Is there anything else that folks want to have on my radar?
That's all I've got.
Not legislatively, but I just wondered if you'd give us a quick, since we didn't get to have our Kellogg meeting last week, if you'd give us a quick recap of your meeting with Neil and the state.
Yeah, so we just got together with Rihanna, who's the governor's staff person here, and Jim, whose last name I'm blanking on right now, who does Superfund work for the governor, and then Neil and John, who's been working with him on the credit side. We all sat down and just talked about kind of how to move forward with kind of the work that Neil was doing in the existing Regional Solutions Project. And a lot of it was bringing folks up to speed kind of on what prior conversations had been, and just making a plea of sorts that, I guess I said, I think there's a real hero moment here for state agencies. Just what can you all do to help us kind of convene? And we had a lot of conversations about whether it sits with Regional Solutions or should we actually go do a Oregon Solutions Project, actually have a convener where you get the kind of the document at the end, because that's what I feel we need. We need like a signed memorandum of understanding that says who's on first and second and all that. That does come more through Oregon Solutions Projects than a Regional Solutions Project, so we kicked that around a little bit. My understanding, the meeting went a little bit long, which is a good thing. So I believe after that, what they decided is we are going to have an agency meeting. So it'll be ODF&W and DEQ and the governor's office, and we're all going to get together and just kind of get back to the project and see where things sit now and talk next steps. So Rihanna did agree to convene that meeting. So that's a good thing. Neil was excited. I think a lot of it was introduction, to be honest. Like, I wanted them to know him and him to know them and know what they do. So they're still in. It's definitely still on the list, I think. And we'll kind of do this next step. I think we still need to kind of seriously consider after that, if that's not moving in the direction we need to go, potentially just engaging in an Oregon Solutions effort. So that's my takeaway.
What about the concept of getting all the culvert money in the state?
Yeah, still a concept. Yeah, I mean, I think we could.
She has been heard on the other side of that concept once upon a time. I think.
I think it's still there. It's just all the culverts money in the state still needs other money.
Yeah.
So I definitely, said, I think it's worth continuing to talk about. And that's where I said, where I was going with them is I believe there's folks in each agency that care a lot about this project and want to see it, but they all have to link arms and kind of jump in at the same time. And so that's where I was like, what is the vehicle that we can have that makes people feel safe in doing that? And so I think it's all, in my view, it's all heading towards next session. So what kind of budget ask, and do we need any legislation? Do we need anything heading into the next legislative session that really moves it all together?
And are Senator Taylor's or Representative Powers' offices involved in these?
They will be. So that was part of the conversation too, is when to go back to our state and federal electeds. At this point, I want to give I think we agreed the state agencies coordinating one more time together would be good to kind of sharpen. I want to make sure we don't waste anyone's time. Like, what are we asking for? But I think it will take a special allocation and a special prioritization of some kind that, to me, could come through a political process. And then I do think there are other funding. I think there's culverts money. I think there's bridge money. I think there's restoration money. There's other things, too, that could happen. In the near term, once that happened, you all sent me the emails about the opportunity for restoration credits related to the Superfund work. And so I know Neil's running that down right now and looking into what could get pulled together. The deadline for that's March 3rd. But for all the reasons that it popped up high on the list before, it can pop up high again. It's an amazing restoration project. It meets a lot of the criteria. So, so that's mine.
And so what about I sent notes from the Watershed Council meeting, and one of the comments there was that there's some of the pushback from environmental groups on T2020 has been about preserving wildlife corridors, and that there was maybe some room in there for this because of the passage under the bridge.
I haven't heard that. I don't know, Mayor, if you've heard that. I think Metro would have, if I were Metro, I would say we did a parks measure, this is a transportation measure, but I don't know. I mean, it might be. I mean, again, I don't know what Neil, I haven't been in those conversations with him. So my perception of the transportation measure is that they've worked pretty hard to get it to the place that it is now. I don't know that they're opening up that type of project.
They had a big hearing on the 13th, right?
They did. Natalie has not been tracking T2020, but she has been involved in a working group on corridors in the area, so you might check with her and see if they, because that broader group would be the place where anything meaningful would happen around T2020.
I don't think it's going to make the T20. It wasn't called out on the McLaughlin corridor at all. It was a hard sell.
Well, I mean, but this idea of pushback on wildlife passage, you haven't heard any of that in any of the meetings you've gone to?
No, I don't think there's been any testimony at T2020 on that.
Really?
Not that I've noticed.
Okay.
Not that I've been at all the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I would let him, I mean, if he may have insights into that I don't have.
Well, it may just be a, rumor mill thing, too.
But yeah, I did, unfortunately, this hadn't looked like a really great probability for a while. So that's why I'm not as in the loop on it as I was before. So. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. One thing, just in case it comes up in your announcements, we were going to be having the NDA leadership meeting on Thursday night. We're moving it to February the 3rd because it conflicts with PSAC, which is too big of a conflict. So just in case it's on your list and anyone's listening, the announcement's gone out, the calendar has been changed, but just in case you had it in your thing, we're going to move it to the 3rd. So, okay, that was it. Thanks.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, the last thing is our announcements. The Lettering Cultural Forum season will kick off this Thursday, January 23rd from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the library. Amy Stewart, author of Cop Sisters on the March, will be the first speaker. Each event is free and are held at the library from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on the third Thursday of each month through November. Join the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and other volunteers in improving habitats at Spring Park and Elk Rock Island on Saturday, January 25th from 9 a.m. till noon. Tools, gloves, and refreshments will be provided. Please join us to celebrate the grand opening of the Kellogg Multi-Use Trail, the long-awaited grand opening.
Kelly loved that title.
This Saturday, January 25th, from 1 to 2 p.m. The event will include a ribbon cutting, heaters, hand warmers, warm beverages, and other refreshments. Does everybody think it's going to be cold? And cover to get out of the weather.
And if you want to warm up beforehand, Bike Milwaukie is leading a ride.
That's right.
Right here.
Yeah. Is it in there? Good. It's not on.
In addition, Bike Milwaukie volunteers are organizing a bike ride to the event that begins at 12 p.m. at the Johnson Creek Trailhead located at Johnson Creek Boulevard and Harney Drive. Please join them for a fun winter bike ride. Drop in for an open house on Wednesday, January 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. to view the design plans and speak with project staff about the 43rd Avenue SAFE project. The open house takes place at Llewellyn Elementary School. New Oregon initiatives include House Bills 2001 and 2003 have recently passed, aimed to provide additional housing choices and increase housing supply. As the state works to implement this important housing legislation, they are hosting community conversations, and one is coming to Milwaukie that you don't want to miss. Join staff from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development at the local leaders on Thursday, January 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Clackamas Community College Harmony Road campus to join the discussion. Visit the Letting Library on Saturday, February 1st at 2 p.m. and meet Lisa Mundorf, a local author who will share her picture book called Welcome Home, Where Nature's Most Creative Creatures Dwell. Save the date and join me at the 2020 State of the City address on Thursday, February 6th from 5:30 p.m. at the Letting Library. I will talk about Milwaukee's accomplishments over the past year and plans for 2020. I suppose I better start writing that speech.
That'd be good.
Do a pantomime.
For more information about each of the events and others, please visit the city's homepage at www.milwaukeeoregon.gov.
So I would just say that I've been telling everybody I can, except the people who are going to ride their bikes, I guess, that you can go to Spring Park in Elk Rock Island from 9 to 12, work, and then we'll walk over and eat food at the food cart pod and then be there for the Kronberg. So you can do it all and make a whole day of it. Awesome. This is I don't remember if you read that in there, but the Spring Park thing is the part of it. There's a lot of different projects, but part of it is putting the Christmas trees in the alcove between.
Hip waiters provided.
Yes. I think they have enough people to fill the waders, but if you're really dying to get in waders and climb out in the river, that can probably be arranged.
I wanted to add that the Clackamas Community College State of the College address is Thursday, January 23rd from 3 to 4 p.m. in the Harmony West Room. That is Milwaukee's newest college.
Newest.
Well done.
And oldest.
And only.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.